Good morning. Welcome to Village in Motion. Today is Friday, March 22nd, 2019, and we are happy to be here this morning, welcoming two guests who have been here before, and we're happy to welcome you back. We have here on my left Kate Regan, and to her left, Emma Slattery. And Kate and Emma are intern dietitians who are doing 2 weeks this time?
6.
6
You get
weeks.
us for 6 weeks.
6, wow, that's wonderful. You're doing 6 weeks of internship here at Green Spring. And tell us what you're doing this round.
We are focusing on food service management this round.
Okay.
So we'll be rotating through all of the dining halls here, learning all about production and food handling and service.
So as dietitians aren't just in the background looking at menus and lists of foods that people eat. You know more of you also learn about the production side of it.
Yes, we get a very comprehensive education.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So what are you focusing on right now during this week?
Right now we're actually switching off between dining and service.
Okay.
So we'll be doing a little bit in the kitchen and a little bit on the dining hall service side.
Okay, that's good. Now when do you graduate? Is this your last year?
This is our last rotation, so we graduate May 10th. It's coming up quickly.
All right, that's great, good. So you're here today to talk to us about what?
Food safety, yes.
That's good, a good topic.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
which one of you would like to start?
I will start. So
Okay.
I actually have some little statistics that 48 million Americans get foodborne illness every year.
Oh my
which
gosh, that's a lot.
It's a lot. 17% of people come down with a foodborne illness every year, which is why it's important to talk about food safety and how you can prevent that.
Yes.
It leads to 128,000 hospitalizations every year. And older adults are more prone to foodborne illness.
Why is that? I read a little bit about that and was surprised to learn that also.
Yeah, well, your immune system gets a little weaker as you age, which is why it's more important to look out for food safety and be more protective of anything that can cause illness. So whether it's colds or what you're putting into your body.
So our immune system is a little less strong, and then I also read that our bodies are a little less good at processing food as it goes through. So it may take us a little longer to get sick from whatever it is.
Right.
And also it takes us a little longer to get over whatever the illness is.
Yes. There's a longer recovery time, which can be difficult if you're recovering from an illness for an extended period of time.
Sure.
And actually with most foodborne illnesses, it does take a little bit of time before you get sick. A lot of people will eat something and immediately get sick and blame what they just ate, when in reality it could be something they ate the day before, even earlier that morning.
Oh, so it could be in many, many hours.
Yes, because it takes time for your body to really process the food and for whatever...
For some place in your body to say, wait, we don't like this.
Yes, and for whatever's in the food to really have an impact and cause symptoms, that takes a little bit of time.
Okay, and what are the normal symptoms of a foodborne illness?
They're not pretty.
No, of course they're not pretty.
It can be chills, vomiting, diarrhea, bloating, gastrointestinal pain in your stomach are all kind of typical symptoms. Anything that's a head cold isn't foodborne illness.
That's not going to be foodborne.
No.
I did read one thing that said for seniors, it's more likely to be on the diarrhea side than it is for children. It would be more vomiting.
Yes.
Which is interesting. So if you were trying to compare what you had with a younger person, it might not be exactly the same symptoms. Okay.
That's true.
Interesting.
Yes. And so these symptoms are caused by bacteria that are on the food, and they grow on the food because, like how food is energy for us, it's also energy for the bacteria, which is why they like to grow on there. They really like warm environments, which is why there's something called the danger zone.
I just learned about that this week.
Yeah.
Actually, I learned it last week from our dining services director.
It's between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is why you want your refrigerator temperature to be below that, because it helps slow the growth of the bacteria on your food so that you can keep it good longer. And when you cook food, you want it to be cooked above that 140 degrees to kill most of them.
At least 140.
At
For
least.
some meats, it is a higher temperature even than that.
Yes, it can go up to 160 degrees or 180 for different types of
Depending on the meat, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Right. They also grow in foods with a lot of moisture, and that's something to look out for because those spoil faster than foods that are drier, like jerky or dehydrated fruits. Those last a little longer.
Or something like cold cereal
Yes.
sitting in your cupboard is going to be fine, but anything that's moist is where the problem is. So anything that's moist should be below 40 degrees or above 140 degrees.
Yes.
How do I know what the temperature in my refrigerator is?
You can purchase a refrigerator thermometer, and it just sits in your refrigerator, and it can help you keep track of the time. Some refrigerators, or temperature, sorry. Some of the refrigerators have temperature gauges on them, but if yours doesn't, you can just buy one off the internet or in a store.
Sure, at Walmart or
or Target.
Yeah, that's good advice.
It
Okay.
Yes. And something to keep in mind is there's cross-contamination. If you have your meats near your produce, raw meats and produce is something to keep in mind.
So what, and I've been reading
Right.
about that also, that I think I had it here. Meat and poultry and seafood and eggs should be over here, and produce should be over here. What's that about?
So that's only if you're using the raw products. If you
Okay.
have something that's already cooked, it's
You're
fine.
okay.
Yeah, so the main concern is that if you have something that is a raw meat next to a raw vegetable, you usually don't cook the raw vegetables to a temperature to kill all of the bacteria. So if some of the bacteria from the meat gets on the vegetables, then that vegetable can now make you sick. Whereas with the meat, you'll cook it to
You're
the
going
right
to cook
temperature.
it and get rid of the bacteria. So
Right.
keep any of the raw meats and eggs and seafood over here.
Right, but if you're dealing with foods that are already cooked, or if you have leftovers from a dinner and you have meats and vegetables that are cooked, you don't need to worry about keeping them apart. They're fine
Okay.
as is.
Okay, good. Can we talk about leftovers, or do you have that planned later in your?
Well, Kate can jump
That
right
is
into
something
that.
we can talk about.
Let's talk about leftovers.
So say for example, you get takeout from Woodland Skies for dinner. Comes in a plastic container. You bring it home, you're eating dinner, you don't finish it all. You want to store it in your refrigerator. Now there's a lot of questions that people have about that. How long should I keep it? How do I know if it's bad? There is a recommended time that you should keep leftovers for.
Let's start number one with the
Sure.
container. Should I store it in that container that I got from the restaurant?
If it's an airtight container, yes.
Okay.
And also you can transfer it into another airtight container if you're more comfortable with using those. So for example, something like a Pyrex container, this is a glass storage container, plastic lid, keeps food safe. Or you can use other plastic containers, or even wrap it tightly in plastic wrap or aluminum foil.
So the container that we get from our restaurants, those are not airtight containers.
No.
So if I bring the food home, whether I'm bringing it as a carry-out or perhaps in some cases people will eat part of it at the cafe and take the rest of it home, I should not store it in that container.
Right. You
I should take it out of that container and put it in something airtight.
Yes, to reduce the exposure to oxygen, because as Emma said, oxygen is one of the components that bacteria like to grow on.
So we want to cut off that oxygen supply.
Yes.
How about
Yes.
plastic bags? Can I put it in a plastic bag?
You can put it in a plastic bag as long as you are removing all of the extra air from it and
Okay.
then making sure that it's sealed very tightly.
Okay. Can I reuse those plastic bags? It seems like a lot of them get thrown away.
It's not recommended that you reuse the plastic bags, just because in order to do that, you would have to sterilize them to a temperature where it would kill all the potential bacteria that could have been in there, and that's a very difficult process. And
Right.
Yeah, you
What
want to
about
be
the
on the safe
plastic
side.
bags that we get either to carry or carry out in, or plastic bags from the grocery? Can those be used to store food in?
No. It's not recommended to use those because you don't know what those have come in contact with previously. You don't want those as the direct contact to your food because
Okay.
that could increase the chance of bacterial growth.
Okay. So we've stored our food in an airtight container in the refrigerator.
Yes.
How long can we keep it there?
It's recommended that you keep it for 3 to 4 days.
No
However,
longer.
no longer. If it's past that 3 to 4 days, definitely throw it out. But food can also spoil before that 3 to 4 days. So there's other signs that you can be looking out for.
Okay.
If there is visible mold growth, any discoloration, any smell that isn't too pleasant, or any taste that doesn't
So
taste
look at
right.
it, smell it,
and
Taste a little bit.
Yes.
And if it was a hot food, reheat it thoroughly.
Reheat it thoroughly to at least 165 degrees.
Okay.
And it's difficult to know sometimes if you don't have an internal thermometer what exactly that temperature of the food you're cooking is getting to. So if you are reheating something in the microwave, you're just gonna want to make sure it's hot to the touch all the way through to the center.
Two things that I do in a microwave. If I put it on a plate in the microwave, rather than sticking my finger in it, I'll touch the bottom of the plate. And if the food has gotten heated all the way through, normally the bottom of the plate will be hot also.
Okay.
Or sometimes you can stick a fork into it and feel the fork and see if the fork is hot in the middle,
Yes.
rather than
That's another way
sticking your
to do
finger in it. Yes, right,
Yes.
right. Good. And cold foods, if we put them in the freezer, let's say I take the foods from the carryout container, and how should I wrap it to go in the freezer?
The same way, either in very tightly in plastic wrap, aluminum foil, in a plastic bag that you're removing all the excess air from, or you can even keep it in a container such as that.
And how long can foods keep in the freezer?
Foods typically keep for about 3 to 4 months in the freezer, but again, you're going to want to be looking out for those signs of spoilage before that time period as well.
Okay, how do you tell when food is spoiled in the freezer?
Some of the same ways, visible signs of mold, discoloration, odor, or taste that doesn't seem right.
So sometimes meat that has been in the freezer, you'll pull it out and it'll kind of look really colorful. Is that a sign of something wrong?
No, that's not a sign necessarily that the food has spoiled, but it could be an indicator that the quality has decreased a little bit. Sometimes when you keep foods in the freezer for too long, it can lose desirable qualities such as
So it's
flavor
not
or
going to hurt
texture.
me.
Not necessarily.
Okay. So unlikely that something's going to mold in the refrigerator because the temperature is too cold.
Right.
What about freezer burn?
Freezer burn is also not a sign of spoilage, so you can still consume a food that has had freezer burn on it. You're just going to want to remove the portion that has the freezer burn,
Okay.
and then you can cook it as you would normally cook it.
So I had some really good bread that somebody gave me more than I could use. And I cut it up and put it in the freezer and left it too long, and I pulled it out. And I probably hadn't gotten as much air out as I could have. And there's all this frost on it. Is that bread still good to eat?
That's still good to eat, yes. Freezer burn is not a sign of spoilage. It could affect the quality again a little bit. Might not taste as good as that fresh bread, but it's not going to harm you.
So frost that forms on top of foods in the freezer is not going to hurt anything.
Right.
And again, the time period for something to stay in the freezer is
3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months. Okay. As we were working on this last night, we just went to the commissary last night and came home, and I was pulling some things out of the refrigerator and going, oh my gosh, it's so easy to leave things too long. And it wasn't that they were prepared foods, it was more packaged foods. So who wants to talk about how long the dates on foods? Is there something, I'm sorry,
talk about
is
it,
there
yeah.
something else you wanted to say about leftovers?
Well, you did mention that it's difficult to know when a food has gone bad or how long it's actually been in there for.
Yes.
So we recommend that you label the containers.
Good
with,
idea.
Yes, with the date. So say you're putting something in the fridge today, count 3 to 4 days out and write that date on the package.
Oh,
so
good
you know
idea.
if it's past this date, I'm getting rid of it.
Right. Yes. Excellent idea. Good deal.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, also talking about date labeling that you find on store-bought products.
Right. We have some examples
We
here.
do have some examples. So there's generally 3 things you'll see on
Okay.
labels. It's either a best buy, a use by, or a sell by.
Okay. And what do those mean?
And one common misconception is that these dates indicate the safety of food. So people think if I eat a food past this date, I'm going to get sick. But that's not necessarily the case. These dates are actually indicators of quality.
Okay.
So a best by or a use by date mean that beyond that date, the quality might decrease a little bit. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get you sick.
So I pulled out a container of Jell-O, and it said, best by some date in 2016. Is that still all right?
It may still be all right.
I left it in there so I could ask you today.
It may still be all right. I wouldn't recommend eating it, but again, these dates are about quality, not necessarily food safety. So I can't speak to the exact
How wonderful the
safety
Jell-O
of that
would be.
Jell-O.
Right.
But in my opinion, especially for this population, if you're pulling something out of your fridge that's been in there for 2 years, I would say throw it out.
I have a motto down here: when in doubt, throw it out.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what we like to say as well.
Yes, right. Yeah. So best by, sell by, use by. So when we were in the commissary last night, my husband likes to buy these packages of already hard-cooked eggs packaged. And he picked up the package, and yesterday was the 20th, and it said best by 21 March, which was today, and he didn't want to buy it. Would it have been safe?
It probably would have been safe, but again, I would say when in doubt, stay away from
And
it, especially in the older
That's exactly
population.
what it's in the older population, and I think with eggs also.
Yes.
Yes, that was going to be refrigerated and open, but it was. It's kind of an iffy thing.
Yes.
They're good advice. Are there any foods that are absolutely dated that do not use after this date?
No.
How about baby formula?
Infant formula is the
Yes,
only
yeah.
thing, but again, this population probably doesn't have to worry about
I
that.
certainly hope not. Right. So if we look at some of these, and they're in different places on the package. Sometimes it's the hardest thing to find. This one is a can of kidney beans, and it says Best By, and it's January 2021. If we look over here on, this is a new word for me. This is called matcha, M-A-T-C-H-A, and it's a tea. It's a tea that the ladies here have been educating me that really you just stir it into hot water and it dissolves because it's very fine. But it's matcha, and the date on it is sell by. So that really doesn't mean a whole lot. I have tea that's 20 years old and it's
Yes.
still fine.
So actually, sell by is more for inventory management
Right.
for grocery stores or manufacturers.
Yes.
That's the date that they want to get it off their shelves
They
by.
want to keep it moving.
Yes.
Yeah. So we move over here to, oh, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
the granola. And that's here on the top. You sometimes have to look for these things. And the granola is upside down. And it says best if used by, that's a different set of words. Best if used by July 18th. Interesting date, 1961. I'm sure that's very interesting though. Look at that. What would you say that's telling us?
July 18th, 2019. I think that's a G. The G one, I'm not sure what those mean.
And that's very interesting though.
Yes.
That sometimes it's difficult to tell. What is it they're talking about?
It is.
Yeah, because it isn't clear. So sometimes it's hard to tell. In milk products, this is an almond beverage. They're usually right up here on the top. And this one again is hard to see, and it says used by. Milk products, usually you can tell by the smell.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the best way. Yes.
The best and the worst way.
Yes, right. You kind of know, okay, that's the end of that.
Yes.
Right, okay. They're telling us we have 5 minutes left. What else do we want to cover?
Well, with the sell-by dates, especially on canned products, these dates are years in advance.
Yes.
If the can is still intact. Once you open it, it still won't be good until this one says 2021.
Right.
Once you open it, that won't last
What
as
if
long.
I see a can on the shelf and it's dented?
Avoid dented cans.
Okay.
Dented cans invite any contamination and can be a source of some very harmful bacteria and foodborne
It may
illness.
mean that there's something wrong inside the can.
Yes.
It may not just that something has hit it and dented it. There may be something wrong inside.
Right. It could be a host of things that you just don't want to deal with.
Right.
So
Yes.
avoid dented cans.
Leave it on the shelf.
Yeah. Give your can a good look over. Make sure it's smooth. There's no problems with the packaging.
Right.
And once you open it, use it within at least a week.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah. What else is on our list? Oh, here's a question I have. Is it okay to eat moldy food if I scrape it or wash the mold off?
No. So that has to do with weakened immune systems. If you have someone with a really strong immune system, then you can risk it. because just when you see the mold, there's a lot of mold that you may not be able to see and a lot of contamination going on there.
And is the same true for cheese?
If the mold's supposed to be there, then that's a different
Well, that's a different
question.
story. But
Yes.
there's some cheese that, and for a long time, and people have different opinions on this. For a long time, I believed that you could just scrape off the cheese and the rest of the cheese would be fine. And people will tell you, oh yeah, I've never had a problem. But I've been reading recently that if you're seeing that cheese mold grow on the outside, it's very likely also growing on the inside. It's just not visible yet.
Right. And so that's what you want to be careful of. If you have a loaf of bread and one end starting to get moldy, there's probably mold throughout it. You just can't see it yet.
Yes.
And that can still get you sick.
So when in doubt, don't.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Let's talk about the 5-second rule. Do you know what the 5-second rule is?
Yes, when you drop something on the floor.
Yeah, right. How about that? Is that a real rule?
No.
Okay. Give it 5 seconds. Leave it down there.
Leave it down there.
Pick it up and put it in the trash.
You don't know. If you know that you just washed your floor, and you drop something, then maybe.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's been on the floor.
And you don't know how much of the dirt you got off the floor.
No.
Yes, or what you washed the floor with.
What you wash the floor with.
Yes.
If you industrial clean the floor, that's one thing. But most people don't do that. So if you drop it on the floor, just get something new.
But also, you might not want those industrial cleaners in your body either.
Right.
That's true.
So either way, maybe not safe.
I do want to mention a couple of places where people can get more information about food safety. One of it, which would be, of course, if you have a question, contact our dietitians here at Green Spring, Mary Smith and Helen Chung, or you two while you're still here. And you can also call the Virginia Tech Cooperative Extension Service here in Fairfax County. Their number is 703-324-5369. And if you would like to learn more about food safety, you can go online and just type in foodsafety.gov, and the federal government has a wonderful food safety website with lots of good information. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We've learned a lot. Enjoy the rest of your rotation, and congratulations on your upcoming
Graduation.
Graduation. All those words were coming through my mind. Do you know what's next for you?
We are applying for jobs.
Yes.
And
Good.
we will see what we hear back
We'll
from.
see.
Good. Well,
Fingers crossed.
well, I'm sure that somebody will whip you up, and we'll be happy to have you. That's terrific.
Thank you.